On May 7th, 2013, the House Energy and Commerce Subcommittee on Energy and Power held a 2-hour and 21-minute hearing on the changing energy landscape and the potential for U.S. exports. This is Natural Gas 102, and this is a 5-minute recap. The committee brought in 6 witnesses to talk about these issues. 2 were former Democratic senators from oil country. 1 is currently a local official in oil country. You had a noted energy expert in Amy Jaffe, someone from the Truman National Security Project to talk about energy security, and finally someone from the World Resources Institute to take a more environmental stand on the issues. The committee background memo touched on a lot of different fossil fuel issues, including increased domestic oil production and increased opportunities for coal exports. Really, the hearing was all about the natural gas boom and the potential for liquefied natural gas exports. Thanks to the Natural Gas Act of 1938, LNG exports from the United States essentially requires a Department of Energy permit. With U.S. gas so cheap, a number of companies have applied for permits to start exporting gas. The surge of applications has created a backlog at the Department of Energy. The DOE is supposed to decide if the exports are in the public interest. Some witnesses seem to challenge the very existence of that permitting process.
The export of natural gas, it seems to me, will be continuing to play a significant role. What we decided is we believe the market should make the decision about the exports of natural gas.
The question is, does anyone really believe that the Department of Energy, years in advance, 5 to 7 years in advance, can really accurately predict supply and demand and predict who's going to be able to come up with billions of dollars and make decades-long supply and demand offtake agreements? They can't do it.
Most committee members, however, kept their arguments within the public interest framework.
Because of past laws, we give the Department of Energy the right to make a decision on exports of natural gas. There are currently 19 of those applications pending. 1 has been approved. It would be my hope that several more are approved in the near future. If you believe in free markets, this is a win-win.
I support the exports not just from a free market perspective because we need the additional incentives for production in certain parts of the country.
For skeptics, their biggest concern is domestic price impacts.
How will this exporting LNG impact the cost of natural gas for America's families and consumers and the manufacturers?
I know there's a rush to say that we should export it, but I'm wondering that should we not try to keep more for domestic purposes?
Some export supporters even stood up for the Department of Energy process.
So I don't fault DOE for taking a cautious and careful approach to approving these permits. That study showed us that in every scenario modeled, LNG exports offer a net gain to the U.S. economy. And while I remain convinced that LNG exporting should be both allowed and supported by the federal government, I don't believe a careless blanket approval of all pending permits would serve the purpose of the American people.
Some witnesses said there were ways other than export controls to protect domestic price.
So the best way to protect consumers from the kinds of seasonal problems that could erupt from having exports is to have a mandate for minimum inventories in the United States as they have in Europe and Japan.
Others raised greenhouse gas concerns.
We can't have a conversation about the global consequences of America's energy policy without also having a conversation about climate change. I have an open mind about LNG exports. There is a case to be made that exports of LNG may allow other nations to move from coal to natural gas. That could lead to reduced carbon emissions.
Some members raised geopolitical concerns.
While this energy abundance is a source of jobs at home, it can also be a force for good and competition around the world.
Finally, we heard some discussion of environmental controversies surrounding new natural gas production.
But there's also some disadvantages. Gas leakage into the environment, which is a global warming problem, perhaps more of a problem than the coal production that that gas might displace. There's groundwater contamination, but it seems that the disadvantages could be mitigated